You're listening to the Love Over Addiction podcast. Hello. How are you? Today we are going to be talking about 7 clues that you are ready to leave your relationship. Now, I know for a lot of you, the thought of leaving makes you break out in hives, right? It makes you anxious. You might feel a lump in your throat. You might feel a knot in your stomach. You have a physical reaction to the idea of leaving. It's really scary. And I know that it's so scary because I was you for 10 years. I was involved in a very abusive relationship that a lot of people, if they had known, probably would have judged me for staying. Probably wouldn't have wondered, how could I love a man who was hurting me and his kids so badly, who was creating such a terrible environment and a healthy environment with the drinking and the drug use and all the addiction and all the accoutrements that go with addiction, right? It's not just the drinking and the drug use usually. There's pornography, there's gambling, there's lots of infidelity sometimes. There's a lot of lying, a lot of manipulation. All positive things. I'm so sorry, guys. We got to keep our sense of humor about this. We have to. It can be an incredibly painful and depressing, dark time in our life, but if we can, and a lot of it probably might not be appropriate to laugh, but if we can manage to keep it light some of the time, that can be a great tonic, right? It can be a great tonic to laugh at the ridiculousness of some of the things that are going on in our life. I don't know about you, but I used to look back on that and go, how the heck did my life get to this spot where, I was putting up with so much pain and so much ridiculousness that addiction brings. So if you are feeling scared or worried that I'm talking about leaving right now, that's okay. All I ask is that you hear me out. And if you come to the end of this podcast and you're like, Michelle, ain't no way. I'm not leaving. I love them. And you made 7 points. Maybe some of them were good. Maybe some of them weren't. But I am going to stick with my partner. I will tell you, I'll be the first one to tell you, I support you 100%. Nothing that I am saying is a definitive answer or suggestion for what you should do. You should always listen to me with the grain of salt. I'm trying to help you, but not everything that I'm going to share with you is going to pertain to you or be helpful to you. And that's the truth. And so please listen to me and take it or leave it. It's okay. All I'm trying to do is offer suggestions and see how you feel about them. Because the truth is, the way you can tell that you've healed from loving someone struggling with addiction is you can ask yourself, do I have autonomy over my life? Am I the one in charge, or am I letting addiction continue to boss me around, to make me feel less than, to tell me I am worthless, to continue to take charge of my life? If you feel like you are in control of your feelings, of your environment, of your situation, then that means you have made significant growth, and you should congratulate yourself. Because oftentimes when we are struggling in an abusive relationship, or we are in love with someone struggling with addiction, and you guys know who've been listening to this for a while, we view addiction as the third party in the relationship, right? There's you, there's the one you love, and then there's addiction. And oftentimes, both you and your partner surrender control to addiction. You let addiction run your life and run your house and run your finances and run your mental health and run your physical health and all of the above. So if a great way to see and gauge, how are you doing? Are you growing from this? Are you feeling better? Are you healing? Is to ask yourself, am I taking my power back from this disease? Am I taking little baby steps every week that help me get to a place of autonomy, of owning my own life? So, again, today we are going to talk about the 7 clues that you are ready to leave your relationship. And there's no right answer here. So clue number 1 is you're afraid that they will shame you for leaving. Okay, so one of the tricks that addiction tries to play with people who love someone struggling with addiction is addiction tries to convince us that we are worthless. They shame us. And shame is an incredibly manipulative tactic, and shame is a way to try and gain control over you. So what do? Do you just believe the shameful things that addiction is trying to make you feel? Or do you sit there and recognize the manipulation and say, that's not true? So let me give you examples of what I mean. And these are examples I went through, and these are examples where thousands of women in our secret Facebook group talk about daily, which is they try to say that we are damaged. So oftentimes our loved ones will bring up our past, really embarrassing moments from our past. Maybe you've shared something with your partner in a really vulnerable moment when you wanted to feel close to them and you were feeling particularly loving. And now they're using that past against you as a way to convince you that if you ever leave, you will never find somebody else who loves you because you're worthless, because of that thing, that 1, 2, or 3 things you mentioned about in your past that make you unlovable. So if your partner is doing that, that is addiction trying to shame you. And now that you can recognize it, you are a strong enough human being to be able to say to yourself, that is not true. That is a lie that addiction is trying to have me believe so that I can stay stuck in this relationship and I won't leave. Right? You can recognize that as a way to keep you hostage in this relationship. They will tell you things, maybe they don't tell you directly you're unlovable, but they make you feel unlovable. Maybe they point out physical things to you, maybe physical, what's the word I'm looking for? Attributes about yourself that they say no one would ever love you. So my ex-husband used to bring up my weight all the time and would say no one would ever want to sleep with you because you've had 3 babies and your body's, and he used a whole bunch of profanities. So I used to think, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to be intimate with anyone ever again in a relationship because who would want to see this body naked again? I can't ever be vulnerable. He's right. I'm disgusting. I'm gross. So they'll use whatever tactics they can to convince you that this relationship is as good as it gets. And not only will they try to convince you that it's as good as it gets for you, but that you are just so lucky to be in a relationship with them. That you are the blessed one. That you are the one that's just absolutely fortunate to be chosen by this person. Because, and a lot of us feel that way, don't we? I mean, I remember my ex-husband was very handsome. He was the captain of the soccer team. He was very funny and incredibly smart. He was my tutor. He had it all. Like, he was the full package. And I felt so badly about myself already. I had such low self-esteem that the idea that this handsome guy, he could have selected any girl in our high school, and he chose me. That blew my mind. I was like, of course I'm the lucky one. Because even though he has this little bitty problem called addiction, other than that, he is amazing. He's funny. He's charismatic. You know, when we were married, he won this award at work, the top award at his job. He just is he's a great guy, just struggling with addiction. And here's the truth. Sometimes some of us are married to great men that struggle with addiction. They are honest. They are kind. They are thoughtful and considerate human beings. And other times, some of us listening to this right now are not married to great people. We are married to people who have not made great choices, who have been hurtful, who have broken the law, who have hurt other people, who are threatening, who are hitting, who are being physically or verbally or financially or sexually abusive. So I don't want to make the general statement that everyone that we love is good, naturally good. Sometimes addiction turns the people that we love, that were once good, and those people have slowly and gradually died a very long death. And now who replaces them is a shell of the person they once were, and this person is not so good. Okay, so going back to number 1. You're afraid they will shame you for leaving. So you're believing these shameful feelings that they are trying to make you believe into keeping you trapped. That's a clue that it might be time to leave your relationship. Why? Because the truth is that the person that you and I are dreaming of when we dream of our partner, when we dream about being in a romantic relationship and loving someone for the rest of our lives, that person is safe. That person is thoughtful. That person doesn't shame us. That person builds us up. That person is our greatest cheerleader. And that's what we deserve. But we're not going to truly believe that even if you were to meet your dream partner and they were to become your biggest cheerleader. Guess what? It wouldn't matter because you don't believe it about yourself. So you have to start with that. You have to start with this positive self-talk, the daily affirmations that tell you and remind you you are incredibly loving, you are incredibly kind, you are thoughtful, you are worthy, you are trying your best and that is good enough, that you are fun to be around, that you can be very creative, that you are super responsible. Those are the things you need to start believing about yourself so that you can A, get rid of the shame that addiction is trying to make you feel, and B, when if you decide to leave, when you find someone that will be your greatest cheerleader and they cheerlead for you and they look at you and they say, I can't believe I am so lucky to be with you. You are the most beautiful, wonderful person I've ever found. That when they say that to you, that you can look them in the eyes and you can say, yeah, I know. I am pretty great. That's where you want to get to because it feels really good to feel that way about yourself. It's not conceited and it's not selfish and it's not narcissistic. It's recognizing that you have a lot of gifts to give and you are a great partner. And You finally found someone who recognizes that. That's the dream, right? Okay, so that's clue number 1. You guys, we might not be able to get to all these clues because I'm kind of dragging this out a little bit. So maybe we'll break this into 2 podcasts. So let's go to number 2, though. So the second clue, you're ready to leave your relationship, is because you're staying because you're scared of being alone. Ooh, I know this is a big one, right? This is a lot of the reason why I stayed. Being alone sounds incredibly scary to people who are codependent. We love being in a partnership. We are so loyal to a point where it can be completely detrimental to be loyal. We love the idea of sharing our lives and our memories and our plans with somebody else. We love the idea of taking care of somebody and then hopefully having that care reciprocated, right? The idea of being alone and being independent can make us feel a lot of anxiety. And the anxiety about being alone, unfortunately, is not a good enough reason to stay in a marriage or in a relationship with someone who is mistreating you. So I ask you to ask yourself, is there a part of you that is staying and putting up with a little too much because you're afraid of being alone? I like to think that every woman and every man on this earth really does need to get to a place where they know without a doubt that they can not only make it on their own, but that they can be financially and mentally and spiritually independent. Really. Now, I know that's a tall order because let's just get real here. A lot of us are financially independent or financially dependent on our partners. I was a stay-at-home mom, hadn't had a job in 7 years. I had absolutely no idea about our finances whatsoever. I was completely irresponsible, and I'm terrible at math, so I just always assumed, well, I'll just let my husband take care of the finances. And part of me loved that, like, very romantic, like, damsel in distress, like, oh, my husband pays the bills, right? That, like, old-fashioned type of traditional model, right? I thought that was me being a subservient wife. Like, it was me showing respect for my husband. Little did I know that our bank account was completely drained all the time, and that if I just took 5 minutes to look at our bank account, I would see hundreds of dollars being withdrawn at ATMs for prostitutes, for drugs, and God knows what else, right? I could add up all of the bar bills. Or I could go through our records and see all of the amount of money we paid for DUIs, or jail bonds, right? Addiction is really expensive. And when I decided to leave, I had no money. I was broke. I had no friends. I had no money. I had 3 young kids. And I worked out the math and thought, oh my gosh, the amount of money it's going to take to put my 1-year-old in a daycare is the exact same amount of money that I would be making if I got a job. So for me, I had to call a homeless shelter and ask for, how long they could care for a mom and 3 kids. I had to go to my family and tell them the truth of what was going on and ask them if they could help me. And I had to be willing to live a very different lifestyle not that I was living a really expensive lifestyle before when I was married, but I had to be willing to give up my home and the things that I found really comforting, and be willing to be open to, being a single mom. There are a lot of government resources out there that can help women who are like me, that were broke and had no money and no job. There are wonderful lawyers who will help you work for pro bono. I've met a lot of them. And there are resources at your local court system that can help you get divorced. So there's help out there. It's not necessarily easy to find, but there is, if you are like me. If you are not like me, congratulations. I mean, well done. I commend you. I know there are lots of people in this community that they pay the bills. They monitor their finances. They are working full-time, or, are very ambitious and have jobs and careers. That is terrific. So you can check that box, right? You can sit there and say to yourself, if I am alone, I know financially that I am responsible and I have the resources to support myself. That is sensational. And that is something that I am in awe of you for doing. So take a look at where it is that you are actually, what's giving you fear about the idea of being alone. Really get down and dirty in the weeds with it. Are you afraid? Is there fear around how you're going to financially survive? What about mentally? Is this whole codependency thing really kicking in for you? And you think about New Year's Eve and who are you going to kiss? Who are you going to watch Hallmark Christmas movies with? It's Christmas time, so that's where I'm going there. Who are you going to go to graduation, your kid's graduation with? Is it this like romantic, nostalgic part of you that is keeping you kind of stuck in this relationship, hanging on to hope, where there might not be hope to hang on to? And if that's the case, here's a little challenge for you and see how you feel about it. What if you could have all those things? What if you could sit on a cozy couch with a bowl of popcorn watching a Hallmark movie and holding hands? But what if it's not with the person that you're with? What if that fantasy can come true? What if that dream is absolutely reasonable, but it's with somebody else who's happier and healthier and contributes more? What if that's the thing? And what if the idea of you being alone is only temporary? It's only a resting spot. It's only one chapter in your book of life. What if it's necessary in order to get to that fantasy? Just a thought, just a consideration to think of. Okay. Number 3, let's do the last one, number 3, and then next week I'll follow up with the rest because I don't want to take up too much of your time. So number 3, as far as the 7 clues you're ready to leave your relationship, is you don't see signs of things ever changing. All right, this is a big one, guys. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I'm going to ask you to think about your life really honestly. You can be honest with me because I will never, ever judge you. There's nothing that you can share with me that I haven't heard before or that I haven't done or been through before, okay? We are a very tight community here. So you can be honest. I want you to ask yourself, how have things been changing in your life? If you look back on the last 2 years, take inventory and say, are things getting worse? Are things getting better? If your loved one is drinking, is an alcoholic, are the binges, are there more times? Okay, are there more days in between the binges, or are there fewer days? Is the alcohol, was it a case of beer or a 6-pack of beer that went to a case of beer? Has the amount of alcohol increased? Has it gone from beer to a harder spirit? Have they decided to now start drinking outside of the house and not around you? Are they passing out earlier rather than later? Has their addiction morphed from one thing to another? That's very common. So has their drinking turned into an addiction of marijuana? Or cocaine or pornography? How often are they breaking their promises to you? Now, some of you might say, Michelle, actually it's been a great 2 years. We've had a couple relapses, but other than that, my loved one is sober and steady. I heard from a couple of you just recently that that's happening, and that is amazing. And I am so happy for you, and I hope that that continues, because that must be a great relief. And good for your partners for trying so hard, because there's nothing that I respect more than somebody that struggles with addiction has gotten sober. That is absolutely the greatest strength, in my opinion, of everything. But if they haven't, if they are showing signs of not changing or even getting worse, I want you to consider the idea, just consider, of leaving your relationship. Because you and I both know this disease is progressive, meaning it gets worse over time because their tolerance builds up and they require more and more and more to feel the levels of serotonin and dopamine and that they are craving to feel. They need more to escape. They need more to feel euphoria. So, unfortunately, that's why if they are not showing signs of getting better or they are getting worse, that is a very good clue as to your future. That's a good clue to project into the next 5 years and think, okay, so if this remains the same, or if it gets worse, am I prepared to stay? Am I prepared to continue to put up with this? Am I continued to be exhausted from this disease? Life is already difficult. And then you put on the layers and the pressure and the strain on a relationship of addiction. Oh my goodness. It's incredibly hard. Now, there are people that come out of this better. There are. It's not hopeless. There are success stories, but the odds are very slim. And you have one life to live. And so if you think that you are comfortable with the next 5 years status quo, then that's great. But if there is a part of you that is deep within your soul that is saying, I think I want more. I want stability. I want safety. I want love. I want to feel respected and admired. I don't want arguing. I don't want abuse. I'm tired. I'm done. Then please consider the idea. Just consider of what is your plan B? What would it look like for you to leave? Where would you go? Where would you live? Where would you stay? And if you're worried and feeling overwhelmed about all of those questions, please don't worry about it, because that is exactly why we have the Stay or Go program. It walks you through 12 different steps of how to make a decision and come to the conclusion of staying or leaving. Now, if you are like those people that I mentioned before, like I was, who had no money to spend on a program, that's okay. We give them away for free, because everyone deserves to be cared for and considered, and everyone deserves help. So just go to the website, loveoveraddiction.com, and you can write to us and we will gladly give you that for free. Okay, I love you guys. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you next week. This podcast is created for your support, encouragement, and entertainment with my personal thoughts and beliefs. We are bonded together by the fact that we love someone suffering from addiction. This is not intended as a substitute for therapy or advice from a professional.